All right. I think I'm live. I'm not very great at doing this on my own. I have a chat on the side, so you guys will have to let me know if I am live in the chat. I actually have it up for once in my life. I'm going to do my best to have a look at it. I'm going to try to multitask. I can't make any promises because I'm objectively awful. And I'd like to thank you all for being here. So, welcome to Shannon Q, everybody. I am Shannon Q. If you are new here, welcome. If you are here watching live, be good to each other in the live chat. And I wish I could say I was excited to cover what we're covering today, but I'm not. Oh, good. We're live. Yes. Okay. So before we get started, I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping items while we are waiting for people to come on. Let me just alternate my view here momentarily. The first thing I have to say is I will get my stuff together shortly, my poop together shortly. I'm anxious about this one. Yeah, we'll get into why once we get going, but we're going to be covering some things that aren't easy to listen to. So I would like to just, before we get started and before I even get into housekeeping, just say that we are going to cover concepts of assaults on the stream. So if you need to take care of yourself, please take care of yourself. If this isn't for you, that's fine. I understand. It's important that you take care of yourself first. Now, to get into the housekeeping items before we get into the crux of what's not going to be a fun conversation for me, I would like to talk about something a little bit more uplifting and wonderful, actually. So recently I had some viewers reach out to me because they had made some things for me and they asked if they could send it to me. I didn't have a P.O. box. So I went out and got one specifically so that these people could send these amazing, wonderful gifts that they made for me. So I wanted to share them with you and say thank you to them simultaneously. So the first thing that I got was this, and I'm not sure if you guys can see it. It lights up. It's pretty amazing. Isn't it cool? Somebody made that. Isn't that? I'm exceptionally lucky. I am a blessed individual, and I needed to take the time on one of my shows to say thank you. And the second thing is this blanket. It's quite large, but it was hand crocheted and it says sexual humanist on it. And wow, that's pretty awesome. So thank you. Thank you both for anybody who would like to send me a letter. I have the P.O. box for at least another 3 months, I think. So if you'd like to send me a letter or if you have made something or if you have some art, I would love to see it. It's not an expectation. I got it specifically so that these two wonderful people who contacted me could send it along. So it's not an expectation that I have, but it is something that's available if you would like to send something along and maybe aren't big on the social media for contact. They came with lovely letters and I really enjoyed them. They meant a lot to me. So I needed to just take the time to say thank you so much. It means the world to me. And I'm in awe that somebody thought enough about what I do and who I am to take the time to do something like that. I'm incredibly grateful. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's worth taking the time to acknowledge people who do wonderful and lovely things, because the rest of this probably isn't going to be as wonderful. All right. So the second thing is, as people are coming on, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge my patrons and people who have sent super chats in the past. As a result of that, I actually now have a new setup. I was able to get a second screen so that I can do these live streams and respond to videos, respond to people who've made responses to me, respond to current events. One of the things that has been requested of me after I did the Jordan Peterson stream regarding his addiction to antidepressants and his subsequent visit to recovery was that I weigh in a little bit more with my opinions on things that are going on. And so this is affording me the ability to do that with a little bit more, in a little bit more of an aesthetically pleasing way, something that's a little bit more engaging for the viewers. As a result of you guys, I was able to do that. I now have the second screen which is enabling me to have this wonderful OBS setup where you can see the stuff that's scrolling to the side here. And also thank you very much to Paul, who made my background for me. Thanks, Paul. But I did figure out OBS. And let me tell you, I am technologically not advanced, and remedial is actually probably the appropriate word. So it took me a little bit to figure out OBS. So if there are some technical hitches, I apologize. It happened to me the other day. I started a stream with no sound for my guest. So I apologize if there are some hiccups along the way. So that covers the housekeeping items for the most part. I just want to say I am monitoring the chat as best I can. Once I start talking, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to do so because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I am dyslexic, so it's a little bit difficult for me to follow a scrolling chat while holding a thought in my head. So please, please, please don't think that I'm not attempting to be engaged. With this topic, I am very, very interested in what people have to say. I'm going to try to reserve some time for the end. If you do send super chats, they will of course be read so long as they are respectful and on topic. So we begin. Now, I was initially going to do a stream on something different, but yesterday something happened. And before we get into what I'm responding to, I'd like to lay out a little bit of the groundwork of why I'm having this conversation with you guys today. And that's what I hope this will be, is an ongoing conversation. So I have a friend. His name is Dave Worley. He has a channel that I've been on. It's a lovely channel. He's approaching his 100th podcast. I believe that this was podcast 96 or 97. I believe it was 96. The link is down below in the description, so you can check it out. And he interviews people from a wide variety of backgrounds in the atheist community, and his goals seem to be more so than challenging people. It's more so to give a more human side of the people that you see at the forefront or don't necessarily know about, who are in the background of the atheist community, really putting in work so that you can have a more human connection with those people. He is a genuine and kind soul and spirit, and I absolutely adore him. So after viewing his podcast yesterday, I had to respond. Now, I'm not going to cover the entire podcast. There's just a small portion at the end of the podcast that I am going to cover. My good friend Rachel Oates, who I was in conversations with since yesterday when we viewed this video, did a wonderful, wonderful breakdown on this video, on this podcast, I should say, that's in the description as well. I would strongly, strongly recommend that you both check out David's podcast, the original podcast on David's channel, which is in the description, as well as Rachel's video, which is a follow-up. There's a lot of things that I am not going to cover that Rachel did, and Rachel is somebody that I deeply respect and have much admiration for. She's a great friend of mine, and she does a wonderful job of covering the breadth of this podcast, kind of start to finish, and what some of the issues are. Now, what a lot of you are probably asking yourself is, what was this podcast about? What is Shannon on about? So the guest that David had on, his name is Lance. Now, Lance is organizing a large atheist conference that's going to be taking place in Brighton, in England. And David had him on so that Dave could talk to him about, what brought him to planning this event, and some of his thoughts about, operating in the background, and about atheism in general, and about the community. And during Dave's podcast, Lance was a bit condescending and combative throughout. But towards the end of the podcast, it took another very serious turn. Now, I'd like to show you the website for this. So what you see scrolling over here is the website for the atheist convention that's taking place in Brighton. It's going to be taking place in April. I can't remember the exact date, but it's going to be in April of 2020. And there are some very, very high-profile guests. So these are some of the guests, some of whom are my friends. Now, Aaron Raw is going to be there. Cosmic Skeptic's going to be there. Who's my friend? This is Lance, who was on the podcast right here. And this is Lawrence Krauss. Now, towards the end of Dave's podcast, after being antagonized a bit by Lance. He was asked to ask Lance a tough question. Lance essentially told David that you're not asking tough questions. You were not prepared to have me here. And if you're going to be doing this in the future and you want to be coming to our convention, you need to ask some tougher questions. So Dave asked him a tough question. I'm going to show you by flipping on the podcast itself what question Dave asked and what ensued after, and we will go through it together, and I will give my thoughts at the end. I think that's enough preamble. So here we go.
I certainly have questions for them. I do have one pressing question for you.
Way more prepared than you were with me, because you were not prepared with me.
I still have one question for you.
Go ahead.
Is it right to platform Lawrence Krauss given his sexual assault allegations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please, do not look at you. Look at you. Look at you. Let's look at me and look at you. You have never. Come on. You two. We're guys. And now we're going to talk about this on the guy level. We're not going to talk about this Krauss level. We're going to talk about this guy level. You never got wrong signals? You never got wrong signals from a girl that you thought she likes me, she didn't like you, and you touched her?
I'm speaking specifically more like the...
I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about you personally. Come on, dude. I did it. You did it. Look, come on. We're not the best looking guys in the world.
I wouldn't be able to specifically point out a moment where I thought they were leading me on. No.
Yeah. Didn't know? Did you know? Come on. When you were 15, 16, 17, did you get the signals? I didn't get them. I have no fucking idea what girls want.
Okay. So we're going to pause for a second. Now, in case any of you don't know, I'm assuming most of you likely do. If you're watching this channel, there's a chance that you're fairly well entrenched into what people would call the atheist community. So Lawrence Krauss had several sexual assault allegations levied against him. I'm not going to get into the allegations that were levied against Lawrence Krauss. In fact, for the purpose of this conversation, and I want to make it abundantly clear that this isn't the position that I hold, I'm going to assume actually that all of them are false, because what is important is the response that was just given. So he was directly asked a question. He was directly asked, how do you feel, or why do you feel it's a good idea, or do you feel it is a good idea, I should say, to platform Lawrence Krauss given the sexual assault allegations that were levied against him? Now, there's a myriad of responses that could have been given to something like that, especially if you are an organizer of a massive convention, a convention that's going to have Richard Dawkins attend. This isn't one of them. This isn't one of them. There's a couple things I want to address, and I worry that I'm going to go over time because there's a lot to unpack. Now, one of the first things he says is that we're going to talk on a guy level. Now, that's incredibly confusing to me as a human person, because men can be sexually assaulted as well. Anyone of any gender can be sexually assaulted. You don't have to be a specific gender in order to be able to have a conversation about why that's wrong. The next thing that he brought up was signals. Now, I'm going to get into why this is an anxiety-ridden response to me at the end, so please be patient with me. Here's my rule of thumb. If you don't understand whether or not the signal is that the woman wants to touch you, if it is not explicitly clear, if it is not enthusiastic consent, don't touch them. Don't touch them. Do not. Do not touch their leg. Do not touch their shoulder. Do not hug them. Do not touch them. Everybody has different boundaries. Respect those boundaries. You are not entitled to touch anyone, regardless of how they act around you. Unless somebody has made it explicitly clear that this is something that is welcome, you just don't do it. And in an environment like a conference, the reasons that you should be touching anyone are nominal at best, which is the context of the question that was asked. It was essentially obfuscated. The direct question was then turned into a way of shooing off sexual assault allegations in general. Now, we've just started. There's still more. So I'm probably going to press play so that I can gather my thoughts a little bit.
Well, in terms of the signals, no. Typically, there aren't those specific signals, no.
Seriously, dude? If you didn't get it, I didn't get it either. And Kraus, he's just in the higher highlight. That's all it is. They could have nailed me, you, anybody else.
Okay. Here's another thing. The statement that he just made was they could have nailed me, you, or anybody else, but Lawrence Krauss is just in a larger limelight. Now, he can correct me if I'm wrong, because he's welcome to come here and have a conversation with me. And in fact, I welcome it, because I think that there should always be a path to redemption, because people make mistakes, but this deserves attention. What I hear when he says that is that these allegations, for the most part, when they're levied, are false and are an attempt to bring down powerful men. It essentially brushes off the allegations in general, dismisses the people making them, doesn't make a critical assessment of them, and says, this is just what women do to get attention. They accuse powerful men of assaulting them to get attention. This is a man who's organizing a conference that women are going to be in attendance. There's one woman speaker. All right, I'm going to press play again.
Sure, I'm very questioning of how it's all happened at once for Neil deGrasse Tyson, for Krauss. Who else was it? Somebody else was. But then there's videos that come out from people like Christina Rad where they end up saying they touched my leg, they turned it around, they grabbed me.
We don't get signals from women. I mean, I'm lucky. Here's the thing. I've been married for 20 years. I got it. But beforehand, I didn't know if I should touch her leg or touch her arm or, trust me, 20 years ago, I was like you are today. Let's be honest. Seriously, you're out with the girl. Yeah, and I'm not going to Krauss or anybody else. I'm not going to do it. But seriously, you're out with a girl. I'm out with a girl. I'm not out with a girl because my wife would kill me. But if she didn't kill me, I'm out with a girl. You're out with a girl. She's nice. She's flirting her hair. And you're like, okay.
This is a side note. What does flirting her hair mean? If I do this, does that mean that you can put your hand on my inner thigh? Does that mean, is this somehow coded in language that I want you to touch me in any way? That I want you, any way at all? These are not words. Hair is not consent. Touching my hair is not consent for you to touch me. At all. At all. These excuses are infuriating to me. Just utterly infuriating. The abject dismissal of allegations that women make is it's difficult for me to focus right now and articulate things in an impartial way. Because you hear this so frequently. You know, a woman gave me a signal. She made a move. She made eyes at me. She was being nice to me. She was flirting with me. So, I mean, I grabbed her by the waist or I touched her thigh. If you were a man, and you were a man in a position of power as well. And there's an imbalance. And you were at a conference where you were a professional speaker and you were approached by a woman. She may very well be, as many men would be, as anybody likely would be, enthusiastic about having your attention. You're somebody that they potentially idolize. That's also going to lower the probability that if you do something inappropriate, that they're going to tell you right away. Or potentially at all. They may just remove themselves from this situation and never tell anyone. Ever. Because we as women are told that if we give off those signals, that we don't have a right to say, I didn't want that. I'm gonna press play again.
How do you do this? Hello. My name is Lance. I would like to. What do you do? Hand, eye, heart. No, please.
No, you don't say hello. My name is Lance. This is also watering down accusations as well. The accusations that were made against Kraus weren't simply he touched my shoulder. They were far more than that. I would ask you to look into them yourselves. I'm not in a position where I have all of the information required to make an assertion regarding the efficacy of the claims. I'm just not. But those weren't the allegations. And if a woman wants you to touch her, or a man, or anyone, if anybody wants you to touch them, they can clearly and explicitly say it to you. If it makes you uncomfortable to say, is it okay? Then just don't do it. Because if you're uncomfortable having to ask, they're probably uncomfortable with the result of you asking. That's a fair rule. Just assume that. If it's too uncomfortable for you to open your mouth and ask if it's okay, how do you think it's going to feel if it isn't okay? If it's too hard to ask, and that's why you're not asking, then just don't. If it's uncomfortable to ask, then maybe she didn't give you the signals that you're saying that she gave you. Because if she was giving you those signals and she seemed like she was enthusiastic, asking shouldn't be an issue.
Full disclosure, we have went a little bit too far, and Kraus, I know personally, and if he put his hand on someone's shoulder, or this guy is the
specific claim was putting his hand under her skirt.
I don't know how many times I have put my hand under your skirt, but you didn't bitch once.
I was talking to Dave there. He thinks it's funny. He's trying to make this into a joke between him and Dave right now in order to break the tension that he can likely feel in this conversation. And he's justified in feeling that tension. That tension should be there because this is inappropriate behavior. So this was his attempt at a joke to break that tension. And the joke he made was that he put his hand under Dave's skirt. Now, he didn't address the actual allegation. What he did was make a joke out of it. Now, here's one of the reasons that I'm upset, and there's a myriad of them. Christina is my friend. She's my friend. This isn't a joke. It's not funny. My friend Rachel, again, her video's in the description. Please go watch it. If by some abject miracle you're somehow not subscribed to her already and you're here, you just need to go do it. She is an intensely wonderful human. Made an exceptionally valuable and valid point in the conversations that we've been having over the last couple of days, and in her video, throughout the video, in fact. This is the man who's organizing this conference. If this is the man who is organizing this conference and he is in charge of the safety of everybody there, if he is in charge of the safety of everybody there, and I am one of the attendees, do I have a reasonable expectation that if something like this happens to me, if somebody inappropriately touches me and it's unwelcome, do I have a reasonable expectation after hearing this that he is going to take that seriously, that he is going to create a culture and environment that protects me and people like me or anybody in that scenario? Or is it likely to be shirked off, made a joke of, and made a joke of in public? He was in a public forum here. Now, he made a joke earlier. You guys didn't get to hear it, but again, watch Rachel's video. I'm just going to keep saying it. Or watch Dave's video as well. Please go subscribe to Dave. Dave conducted himself far better maybe than I probably even would have in this scenario, and is a lovely, lovely human and has wonderful conversations. He's very worth subscribing to. Please go check him out. But lost track because I was busy telling you how wonderful Dave was. But in that scenario, if he's the person who is in charge of the safety, do you have a reasonable expectation that he's going to take it seriously? He's making a joke of it in a public platform. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Before this, if you watch Dave's full podcast, and I think I only have the snippet linked. I'll see if I can find the full one so that I can put it down there too. But if you go to his channel, it's the most recent one. Please go see it. He insulted Dave, essentially. He said, this is just between me and your 400 subscribers. Essentially, no one's probably going to see this. Well, guess what? You don't understand how our community operates. We're incredibly well interconnected. If you're having an atheist convention, that's something you might want to check into, because a lot of the content creators who operate in this sphere are incredibly interconnected. And no matter how small the channel, we consider them all important, we consider them all valuable, and we provide our input to each other on just about everything. We connect through Twitter, through Facebook, through YouTube, and we talk all the time. We're on each other's channels. And if you were talking to one of us and you do something like this, just because their channel happens to be small, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to see what you have to say. And if you're an insulting, condescending asshole who makes jokes out of sexual assault allegations instead of directly addressing legitimate concerns about your conference, guess what? People are going to see you. If you want to operate in the atheist community and you think it's important, you better learn what it is.
I've never met you.
Not funny.
I'm just kidding. Seriously, it's joke. Just it's like hand on the knee, hand on the. It's. Come on, man. I'm not justifying anything I do. I'm just being honest. If I don't know the signals and I put my hand on your knee, what do you want me to say? I'm Krauss's biggest supporter, but seriously, at the same time, I think in the 80s, I probably put my hand on a few people, and yeah, throw me in jail.
The Christina Rad video came out last year. I don't know exactly when the event happened. It was from this decade.
It's just a lot easier to do it, and I'm the biggest Lawrence Krauss fan, but she has her thing, and I think it's good, and it's okay, and I'm sorry, and if I did it, I'm sorry. If I put my hand on her knee, very sorry.
What does that actually even mean? Like this is the part where it became intensely confusing for me. He just said, if I did it, I'm sorry. If I put my hand, that I don't even understand. He also said, in the 80s, sure, I did it. Put me in jail. Now, there's a couple of different options here. One of the options is that he was somebody that was concerning in the 80s, but the cultural environment was different, so he wasn't held to account during that period of time, whereas he would be held to account now if he had conducted himself in the same fashion. However, he's married, so he wouldn't. Another option is that he sees it as, he got wrong signals from a woman and maybe, touched her shoulder or something and got rejected in that moment, and sees the two as similar or at least overlapping. Now, both of those are problematic for incredibly different reasons. And if there's a more charitable interpretation, I'm opening to hear it, because I've racked my brain about this because it's been confusing to me. One is that you engaged in definitely questionable predatory behavior, but it was a more socially acceptable environment. And you recognize that now in hindsight. And the second is that you think that engaging in sexual assault is tantamount, similar to, or able to be conflated with accurately just touching a woman or putting a hand on a knee in the 80s when you're 15, 16 years old and you're picking up wrong signals. There's a spectrum there. And one, no, it's not. And B, I'll defer back to what I said initially. If you don't have enthusiastic consent, then don't touch me. Don't touch anyone. It's not that difficult. I'll keep playing. He refers to the 80s and 90s frequently, and it baffles me. Just baffles me. Like, were those the good old days, Ben?
He did his handling. Very sorry. The 80s, 90s were little time. We weren't very persuasive, but today we won't do it. I think Loris has been falsely punished. And, I mean, just saying something and putting your hand on somebody's knee, and then it's easier 14 years later to say he put his hand on my skirt.
Okay, did everybody pick that up? Did you pick that up? Most subtle. But I got really upset about this. No, he said, no, you pick up a wrong signal and you put your hand on somebody's knee. And it's easy 14 years later to say he put his hand up my skirt. Did you pick that up? He's talking at speed, and he's all over the board. But that's worth picking up, because what he essentially just said is that a man had something that's borderline inappropriate contact, but certainly not sexual assault by my standards. And later on, 14 years later on, I've changed my story to make it sexual assault. That's what he's saying. That's how he perceives the allegations. Now, keep in mind, I adopted this strategy going into here that let's just assume that they're all false allegations. Let's assume they are. Because I don't think they are, but let's assume they are. For his sake, he assumes they are. Now, if you assume that all of these allegations are false, is this still the appropriate way to discuss allegations? Is this an acceptable way to have a dialogue about sexual assault allegations for anyone? For anyone at all? It's just not. It's just not. He's speaking in generalities. So he's speaking about allegations in general.
Trying to be Donald Trump on this thing. I'm just saying, yeah. If I put my hand on your knee,
say as it is, please.
You know what I'm going to do? When you come to the event, I'm going to put my hand on your knee. I'm going to rub it up your leg, and you can say what you want. It's just going to be your knee. Okay, it's just going to be.
It's a joke. It's a joke. When Dave comes to the event, he's going to inappropriately touch him because it's just a joke. It's just a funny joke. The event that you're holding.
I'm just saying it was a different time. It's not correct. But I mean, Joe Biden used to put people's arm on other people's hand. It's okay.
Okay. So that's the end of Dave's video. I'm going to take this off full screen and bring it back to the conference. Now, I'm very interested in what you guys have to say. But first, I have a couple of things that I'd like to get out. Now, one of the reasons that I felt I really, really, really wanted to discuss this is that I, like a lot of other women, too many, I've been assaulted. Now, like a lot of women, I didn't say a word. I didn't say a thing. Because why would anybody believe me? Right? What was going to happen anyway? What was going to happen? I was just going to be embarrassed. I was going to have to defend myself. I was going to have to give out details. So why would I? To what end? To what benefit? But I saw the culture changing, and that was promising to me. I found a community that I could exist within, that I felt comfortable in. That I felt like, you know what, if something like this did happen to me, people would take me seriously because they know I'm honest and they know my character. And I know for a fact that they know that I wouldn't make something like that up because they know who I am. And I love going to conferences and events. Going to Faithless Forum is one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And I can't wait to go again this year. But please don't think this is any reflection on Faithless Forum. Faithless Forum is fantastic. But to look at a conference like this, conference that my friends are attending, and to know that if I went there, I would have to guard myself. I would have to adjust my behavior. I would have to make sure that I wasn't accidentally giving off any signals. Because if something did happen, the person who is in charge there isn't necessarily going to take it seriously. That message is clear. That message is clear. He was asked an easy question. Do you think it's right or wrong to platform Lawrence Krauss? Now, we could get into conversations about whether or not that is the case, but he didn't even address that question. He just went directly into a defense of Krauss, and not even just a defense of Krauss, he made an absolute mockery of the concept of assault allegations. That's the tack he chose. Under limited pressure, one simple question, the tack that he chose was to just make an absolute mockery of the fact that sexual assault allegations happen at all. Now, I don't believe in canceling people. I think there needs to be a road to redemption at all times. For all people, I have to believe, want to believe, desire to believe, have been proven that I'm probably right to believe that people have the opportunity to be better when you give them the opportunity to elevate. When you present them all of the reasons why they've gone awry and present them room to right their course. Now, I'm not sure what interpretation you could give of this that's favorable, really, for Lance at this point. I can't even understand how you could. Even if he was caught off guard, if he was under pressure, even just saying, you know what, I'm not comfortable in commenting on that here. Lawrence is going to be there. Maybe I can get back to you with a statement later. There was a million options available to him, and he chose this one. He chose the one where he said that, you know, it's easy for me to touch your leg now, and 14 years later you change it to, yeah, he put his hand up my skirt. And man to man, let's talk like dudes. I mean, haven't all of us done this? I mean, if you look back in the 80s, I probably did stuff that they would put me in jail for. So getting back to my friend Rachel. While her and I were discussing this, she had some really good points. And one of them was that it would be nice if instead of whatever the fuck that was, he came forward to explain what measures are going to be taken at the conference to ensure the safety of all participants, and amend his response to how serious sexual assault allegations should be taken. Now, I am willing to talk to Lance. I would actually like to extend an invitation for him to come here and have a conversation with me. Not necessarily or particularly a combative one, but one that maybe would be fruitful. And it's something that I think I would actually like to happen, because like I said, I think that people can change. But up to and until it's absolutely clear to me that this would be a safe place for me to go, or anybody to go, and be taken seriously if something harmful was to happen to them. Not that it matters to them. I mean, who am I? I've only got 15,000 subscribers, but this isn't a conference I would ever attend or promote, to the extent that I suppose I'm promoting them now, having them on here. But up until yesterday, I didn't even know who Lance was. I'd never seen him before in my life. But now I know to check when I'm looking into conferences and events to see if he's on the board or the panel. And that sucks. I hope he rights his ship. I hope he recognizes that how he conducted himself is an issue. I hope he recognizes the message that he sends. And I hope more people hear it. Anyway, that's what I had to say about that. So I'm interested in your feedback now. I don't really have any directives for anybody aside from vote with your dollars and go where you feel safe. I don't do guilt by association, so I will not hold his words or his opinions against anybody who is speaking at or attending that conference. And if you are there, I would just ask that you be an active participant in making sure that it is a safe environment, because you, at this point, are aware that the message has been sent, that it might not be. All right, so I have one super chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm out of screens to buy, so I appreciate the donation to the channel. Maybe I can figure out how to make OBS a little less boxy for you guys. I'm working on it. I'm working on it very, very diligently. I'm quite proud of myself that I managed to make OBS look like this. Paul did the background, but I did all the other things. All by myself, all by my big girl self. Which, if you knew me, you would know how impressive that is, because mostly when I look at technology, I've walked away from my computers more time than I can count because it frustrates me. All right. So, Levi, thank you. If you think a woman wants to be touched, just ask. Hey, I got some signals. Can I kiss you right now? 90% of the time, she says yes if you just ask. Yeah, exactly. I just don't understand how complex that is. It's just not. And I worry that when something like this happens, we tend to compartmentalize and then polarize. We say to ourselves, we identify this person bad person. Anybody within the purview circle, tangential relationship to that person is just also tagged as bad. And then suddenly, that person is insulated by the other people that, despite not holding his position or potentially maybe trying to change his position or not being happy with his position, you're isolating them with the other people that you isolated. And instead of encouraging them to change by adequately and accurately providing the pressure where it should be, you're giving them allies against you. I really, really, really am sick, so sick of seeing unproductive cancellations and conversations no longer taking place, people that can participate in change factioning themselves off so that we can all identify each other as enemies and feel vindicated in pointing to the bad person and saying they're bad and saying anybody else who's around them is bad as them for even deigning to have an affiliation. I don't want that to happen. And I wish I knew the answer. Dave's doing something very clever. David, who had the podcast. I was going to shut up, but I've decided I'm not. Sorry, everybody. You're going to have to listen to me for a little bit longer. Now, this conference, let's see if I can scroll down to it. This conference actually has a Atheist Awards thing. And one of the awards that they're giving out for the banquet, let's see if I can bring it up, is Best Video of the Year. Now, there's awards for Best Atheist of the Year 2020, Atheist Author, Jesus Mythicist, Atheist Podcaster, Atheist Image, Best Atheist Video of 2020. Now, Dave's been doing a Twitter campaign to get the video that I just played nominated. I think that's great positive activism. The video of him, of the organizer of this conference, talking about the conference on an atheist podcast, having that video nominated for best video in a landslide where it would need to be presented to the conference. I doubt he would, but it would be nice to see that campaign so that this awareness can be brought up, so that maybe some pressure can be put on him to say, hey, you know what? I've seen that I went wrong. I panicked. Looking back retrospectively, I have some things to apologize for, and I've learned some lessons, and I want to apply these strategies to make sure that people can feel comfortable here. That's what I would like to see happen. I don't often get my wishes. That's not the way the internet tends to work. But something like that is a good example of really positive activism. Him coming on here to have a conversation with me where I'm not just screaming in his face, but saying, okay, here's point by point why somebody like me listens to what you say and thinks you're just completely being dismissive of legitimate concerns. What are you going to put in place so that people like me can competently say when they walk through the doors of a conference that you're holding, that we don't need to be worried, and that if something does happen, it will be investigated, promptly reacted to, and taken seriously? Because that's not the message you're sending. Can you amend that? That's what I would like to see happen. What I don't want to see happen is an onslaught, entrenching somebody into the position that's shitty. I mean, that's going to get me in trouble. But you know what? I'm in trouble all the time, no matter what the fuck I say, so I might as well be honest. I mean, I've suffered through this. This isn't easy to talk about. And it's not something easy to deal with. You can't just point to an enemy, identify the enemy, say they're the enemy, and call it a day as soon as you get more people to hate them with you. We need to be better than that. I got more super chats while I was yelling. Thanks for subscribing to this channel. I don't know why anybody cares about this is why I don't give my opinions that often, because I'd get yelly and I get emotional and I don't focus it's like as I would otherwise. What I should have done was gotten just a little bit drunk, because that would have calmed me down, right? That would have totally calmed me down. All right. Oh, Turkey Hawk. Oh, that's a sticker. I activated those the other day. Oh, thank you. It's a sticker that says you're amazing. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I'm not. I'm incredibly faulty in a myriad of both wonderful and horrible ways, actually. But thank you. I very much appreciate that. I love it. Thank you. And Levi again. Thank you, Levi. If you're uncomfortable asking, you weren't getting the signals. Q, well said. Oh, thank you. Asking is the best way, and it really moves the date forward. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you watching. I'm gonna actually look at the chat now. I'm done ranting, maybe for at least a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I always think I'm done ranting, and then I rarely am. Who's the next Dawkins? Not me. I'm not gonna get invited to this one. Not it. I probably just disqualified myself. think I'll get best atheist video? Maybe I'll get atheist of the year. Probably not. All right. Anybody at me in the chat if you have a question or something that you feel like I addressed or something that you feel that I didn't touch on that needed to be touched on or something or something where you feel like I went off the rails. I do that sometimes. Maybe there's something I'm not taking into consideration. I mean, I feel like that's pretty cut and dry. I'm not sure how anybody could look at that and say, that seems like a reasonable position to hold. Would you like to be in charge of the next conference? You seem like somebody we should put on the PR wagon. Good work. All right, I don't see any ats for me. Do you guys really not have any questions? All right, well, I guess I addressed everything then. I love you all for listening. And again, thank you for this. The P.O. box is in the description if you have a letter to send me. I keep trying to hold it up. You can't really see it, but it's so beautiful and it's so warm and soft. And this too, the P.O. box is in the description. Look how cool that is. And it even says, as always, help elevate the discourse. I should get another one that says, sorry, I'm ranty. And I know I keep yelling. Oh, thank you. Andrew says, I think I summed it up pretty well. Levi, thank you. Levi said I did an amazing job. Does this conference have an official policy on how assault allegations thereof are handled? No, I couldn't find it in the About Us section. But keep in mind, I should link this in the description too. This just happened yesterday. I worked all day and then I coached soccer. So I can't speak to that competently. They may well have a policy on it. I couldn't find it clicking through today. If they do, it's not something that I found readily. But I'm not going to go on a limb and say that it's not there. It's just I didn't find it, but I didn't have a chance to peruse the entire... And the website's not super... It's not super easy to navigate. But anyway, yeah. So go have a look for yourself. Please, absolutely. It's atheist-convention.com. And it's going to be in Brighton, England. How would you feel about getting together with David Worley and some other creators for a panel on this? Oh, I would love to. However, I'm leaving for Calgary in just over 24 hours, actually. So I'm not going to have a lot of time while I'm there because I'm going to be spending time with Paul, and our kids are meeting for the first time, which is really, really exciting. So I'm not going to necessarily have time for it then, but I'd be happy to at some point after. In the interim, if you'd like to do something, I know people always feel helpless when things like this happen. If you'd like to do something, reach out productively to somebody else and ask them what they think about this. Ask them what the position is and engage in a conversation with them about it. Don't say, hey, you're going to this conference. Why do you suck? That means you support this. Reach out to people who are involved in it. If you want to do something and say, hey, what's your position on this? How do you think that we can resolve this? What do you think we can do better? When I manage people, I always say, if you come to me with a problem, I would like to hear that you've contemplated at least one solution. So propose it to me. It's very, very easy to complain. It's far more difficult to resolve. And we need more resolutions. There's lots to complain about. I'm telling you, I'm complaining right now. I'm complaining my face off. But I'd also like to think that maybe there's something positive that can come out of it. Like maybe I can encourage people to, I don't know. These questions aren't easy. Women need to be taken seriously. Are there women who potentially abuse the system and make false allegations? They're human people. Some humans are garbage. Absolutely. So there's the potential for that. But that's why you take the allegations seriously. That's why you investigate them. That is why you look into them. That is why you believe the woman, believe the man, believe the person that has approached you, and take it seriously. Because the one time that you don't, you could be sending that person on a spiral for the rest of their life of feeling worthless and telling everybody else that this happens to, don't even bother letting us know. And that's way the hell worse. Caustic soda, thank you. You're the nicest woman who I completely disagree with. Endearing, thank you. I'm not sure if that's in regards to this stream. I know that Caustic Soda is a theist, and we've had some barbs back and forth in DMs and emails. So yeah, I'm hoping that it's not on this. But yes, I think just in general, he completely I'm not sure if I misgendered you, I'm sorry. They completely disagree with me. Shannon Q, do you think that his kind of position is taken because of predatory nature or because of lack of emotional knowledge, or is there another reason? I wouldn't speculate on why he holds a position. As I said, I was only familiar with him as of yesterday. I don't hold enough information on him to make an accurate assessment of what his motivations might be. And it's always a mistake, I think, to assume motivations for almost anybody. What people say and do, their behaviors and their words, are manifest. You can judge those based on how they impact the environment, the world, and the people around them. But what you can never know, aside from self-report, is motivations. And too often people attribute motivations thinking that they know, and to help narrative construction. And that helped nobody, as far as I'm concerned. Narrative construction is a relatively dangerous thing. Okay. When I was young, no one took me seriously. One guy even told me to be thankful. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I am really sorry. I like this side, Shannon Q. Finding her rage. Sounds like a collab to me. Just thanks, Raging Atheist. Yeah, I do get there's a reason I do relatively stringently scripted videos, is because when I'm engaging really complex topics, I want to make sure that I'm standing on very strong footing, especially since a lot of the topics that I discuss have direct impact on people's mental health, engagement in society, perception of themselves in regards to, sexual orientation or deconversion. It's very, very important that I word those things carefully and meticulously and take a very long, hard look at everything that I've written to make sure that I've looked at it from every angle to be as considerate as possible, because what I say could potentially be listened to and impactful by somebody I never even hear from, and I need to make sure that I can't do no harm. Now, this is a different situation. This is something that is very new to me. Something people keep asking for. I have no idea how it's going to land. It's something that I am willing to do more often. But in this situation, I felt compelled to, as I said, because of my personal experience, because I am close friends with somebody who's affected by this. Because Dave is my friend, and because, for all the reasons I listed throughout this, I wanted to say podcast, but this isn't a podcast, throughout this, whatever this is, YouTube show that I do. I don't know. Why do you guys subscribe? I don't know. I'm trying. All right. Oh, hi, Jimmy. But Shannon Q, what about his argument? Come on. Or his follow-up. Seriously? Yeah. Or it's the 80s. It's the 80s. It was the 80s. And Dave did a good job. Dave was actually, the allegation I'm talking about was within the decade, and then obfuscate. He addressed none of the questions. He couldn't do a worse. If you're in a scenario like this, if you're avoiding the questions, this is because you're afraid of what answering the questions might mean, because, if they're uncomfortable questions to answer because of the way you're going to have a dialogue surrounding this type of issue. You could not have gone farther on the opposite end of the what the fuck pendulum. Anything would have been better if this was your strategy to avoid having to talk about platforming, Chris. These aren't even missteps. You literally launched yourself with a catapult, into a pile of shit, and then just did it again. Then you got up, dusted yourself off, walked back to the catapult, and did it again. Doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. Do you have a favorite Christian song? I used to love Keith Green. Still think he's a musical genius. Christmas song. Hallelujah isn't really a Christian song. It's a Leonard Cohen song, but it's one of my favorite songs just in general, and it's got Christian themes. It's one of my favorite songs. I heard there was a secret chord. And Christmas song? Maybe Little Drummer Boy. Thank you for taking my mind off it, Lloyd Christmas. Ranty bitch. All right. I gotta admit, I kind of dig it when Shannon Q breaks out the mommy means it. That's right. Don't make me come over there. I'm telling you right now, I will get out the timer, and by the time it's done, if you haven't explained what your strategy is for protecting women at that conference, you are not playing Fortnite. I'm not kidding. Try me. There you go. Oh, thank you, Bryn Poo Casey. Oh, it's cute. I love the little doggy picture. Okay, so I've done all the yelling I'm gonna do. I'll go offline and briefly yell at Paul until I go to bed. And thank you all for coming. If you could do me a favor, like if you're new here, subscribe. If you aren't new here and you didn't like it, just leave a comment. Just leave a comment and let me know what you think. This is something that is new to me. I'd be interested in knowing if you like the format, and B, something that all of us should grapple with. It's not an easy scenario. There is no easy answer, but there are right and wrong things. Like, there are right and wrong positions to hold here. And I'm pointing to it. No bueno. Get it together. That's not a way that it's not a way we should conduct ourselves. That's community building. Then thanks, pass. All right. Have a good night, guys. And as always, help elevate the discourse.